Welcome back to Ring Talk, the kind of weekly Goodwin boxing show when Steve isn't away making himself nice and tanned in Turkey. Did you have a good break?
Very good, thank you. Very good. Nice break away from everything I had. Apart from speaking to a couple of people, generally I took a total break from boxing, which is great. And then you can go back, you refresh, full of new ideas and some good things to work on.
And you've got the break now until September anyway for the shows.
Well, I'm going to be at the O2 on the 28th of July. We've got Derek and Frank fighting at the O2. But apart from that, we've got a break till September. But there's a lot of work when there's 3 shows that we're involved with to put together. A hell of a lot of work.
Yeah, because you must have, what, 60 fighters maybe?
60,
over the 3 days?
67. A lot of fights to arrange. Well, we've done the first show's done already. The 8th of Kevin told me today he's done the first show, so we just got to work this week on the second and third shows. But there's some great fights to come up, and looking forward to the build up of our fighters. And we're also hopefully going to be on top of that. Hopefully be a David Haymaker show to work with as well in September, October. So fighters to go on that as well. So it's going to be a busy time.
I saw almost by accident on Facebook actually Anisu Twala, Dave Birmingham.
What do you think of that?
Oh, that's a good fight because Anisu, I want to see somebody stand in front of him and punch him.
You're going to get that.
He shows all of the slickness, all of the skills.
But fair for Anisu and his trainer. We did offer them a traditional journeyman. They said, look, we don't want this. We want somebody who's going to come.
Yeah.
We want a fight.
And Dave Birmingham will do that.
And Dave Birmingham's ready to come. But isn't that great, though? Isn't it great? Daly Perales, who's his trainer, and Anisu, they don't want to build up 8-0s against nobody. They want to fight.
Good on them.
So full credit to them. And Dave Birmingham will be coming. And I think
that's all he knows how to do, isn't it?
And it's going to be a great thing to see how good Anisu is. But Daly is, in my opinion, I've got total respect for him as a trainer. Do you know this is actually true? He turns down opponents, right, Daly, for not being good enough. He's never turned down an opponent for being too good.
Wow. Okay.
Honestly, it's not the first one he's turned down. I want somebody better. I want somebody better. They're all undefeated, his fighters. Yeah. They haven't lost, but he wants them to. He gets the business, so he wants to move them on. I think it's brilliant, and I've got full respect for him. I think he could end up being a really good trainer in time. So
I think that's a really good little fight, that, because Dave Birmingham. I love watching Dave Birmingham fight because he's a fighter. Yeah. Like he's just something a little bit different. I remember watching him with Chris Lay. Yeah. And I thought he gave Chris Lay a lot more trouble than most people managed to give him.
No gimme for Anisu. No gimme at all. It's a proper fight. It's a proper fight.
Agreed. So we're going to run through a load of questions. So thank you to everybody for submitting them. One that isn't on here that I wanted to touch on.
The Fight Cup. Yeah, the Fight Cup.
Yeah, the Fight Cup. So you're going to be doing a draw for that this week.
Yeah, we've got 4 fighters in the Fight Cup, and we've got one reserve. We've got Hotshot Dwayne Sinclair. Yep. Undefeated, very much improving light heavyweight from South London.
I've said he for me is your best, or your most improved fighter probably of the last 12 months. Yeah. I think being in that camp with Joshua Boyatse, I think has
helped him.
Moved him on leaps and bounds.
He wanted to go in because the problem you've got in the light heavyweight division, the Southern Area title's tied up. Kurt Garvey, who has got medical issues, is supposed to fight Joel McIntyre, but because he's got medical issues, that's all been frozen. Yeah. They can't fight for the Southern Area, so that may progress. That may develop. Things may develop as time goes on with it, but at the moment they can't do that. English title, Malshinkwin, Liam Conroy, that's frozen up. The purse bid was won by David Hay for that. Is Liam Conroy going to fight? Is he going to vacate? So at the moment the light heavyweight division is a bit frozen. So rather than sit there not having fights, Dwayne wanted to go in to do that. So Dwayne's there. Secondly, we've got, who I also think is improving, Darryl Church. Yep. He's improving. He fought Jordan Joseph before, we know. I thought he looked very, very good when he fought Ricky Askew.
Good stoppage in that.
Good stoppage. So Darryl Church is very much improving. Jordan Joseph, who fought him, but also fought Joshua Boyatse. He's now going to come back in the Fight Cup. He was going to come back and have a 6-rounder, but they decided to go straight into the fight. Good on him. And then Dominic Felix, undefeated from Northampton. It's the 4th one. John McCallum, who was going to go in the Fight Cup. I did send him 2 messages, but he was on holiday. I never got. By the time he came back, it was filled.
He's always on holiday, John. Yeah. I see all his photos.
Yeah, I know. But unfortunately, when we were setting the Fight Cup up, he was on holiday and not responding. By the time he's come back, the Fight Cup's full, so he just said put me in as a reserve.
As horrible as it is, I hope there is a pull-out, because John's just a character. He's hit me in the face with a chair before by accident, but I still want to see him. Just because if nothing else, he's a bit of a loudmouth. He'll upset a few people.
So John May will come in. I will speak to John. I've just got back off holiday. I'm going to speak to John this week, and we'll work out a different plan for him. But there's been a bit of beef between him and Dwayne Sinclair, so that would have been a great fight.
It's Scotland versus England.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, again, there's no reason that fight might not be able to be done down the line for an even bigger title. So so Thursday we're doing the draw. All the fighters are coming down here. Draw will be done. They'll do a few interviews afterwards. So it's all going to be done there. So Friday we should have all the draw up.
Good.
And be a press release. So keep in that will be taking place on 2 different shows in September. There'll be a semi-final, then another semi-final, and the final will be November, December.
That's good. Making it into stable fights and competitive.
Only 3 of the 4. Dominic Felix isn't.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah.
So 3 of the 4 else. But we're happy for other fighters who are not in our stable to fight in these tournaments.
Yeah.
And the boxers do obviously earn money as they go through, and there's a bit of prize money for the winner as well.
And a nice big trophy.
Big trophy as well, yeah.
Excellent stuff.
Exciting times.
Right, excellent. So we're going to crack on with some of the questions. So hopefully I've got them all, but there were loads that were sent in. We'll start off, where should we go? John Bailey. One of my favourite subjects. What's Steve's take on the AJ Povetkin WBA 24 hours to sign the contract? So to put this in context, this was over a week ago, and we were told that it had to be signed within 24 hours. The WBA had set a deadline, and we still didn't have an announcement about the fight, although Wembley is booked and the date is announced. And so you can...
But Wembley is booked for Joshua to fight another, right? So
yeah.
Can be anybody. Joshua sells out or sells a good percentage of Wembley, no matter who he's fighting.
Yeah.
The problem with this is everybody here is not party to what's really going on and really being said. You can only read into what I see, and what I see is that Anthony Joshua came out and said, I will fight Deontay Wilder for 50 million and I will sign the contract tomorrow. The contract was then offered for 50 million, and whatever all the BS that came with it, they didn't sign that contract.
Yeah.
And they then offered Deontay Wilder, instead of Joshua being offered 50 million, they offered Deontay Wilder 15 million to come to London. Deontay Wilder was team were going through the contract, which it seems to be that the contract was sent quite late, and they wanted the contract back straight away. They said they were working on the contract. Then we then get to hear that WBA have installed a 24-hour deadline. They've got to sign Povetkin or vacate. That 24-hour deadline has passed, and it does not appear that anything's been signed. So it does indicate that perhaps there wasn't, that the 24-hour deadline was a bit more fluid than that. So it does appear to me that, and I'm not, it's just my perception, is that it's just a way of Anthony Joshua, who did not want to fight him next. Full stop. And whatever the smoke screen is, that appears to be the case. However, obviously Eddie will say that they wanted to fight the contract, but my perception of it from the outside is that there was only one person who wanted to fight, because there was a 50 million contract offered there then with the paperwork to sign, and he didn't sign it.
I think you have to give begrudging credit to Eddie Hearn for the whole thing, that he's managed to clear up what was probably a situation nobody really wanted, and create enough confusion around it to turn it around, that for people still to support the narrative that he'd given without questioning it. I think it's bonkers.
But isn't Eddie brilliant at what he does?
100%.
He's a brilliant promoter, brilliant talker.
It might drive me.
And he does the right job for his fighter. His fighter put him in a position with the 50 million call out that nobody really wanted.
Yeah.
They thought by calling 50 million it would just not happen. Yeah. When it all of a sudden was going to happen, Eddie had to do his magic, and he done his magic.
Yeah, he did. And I say, as begrudging as it is, like, I do also think he's so good at doing that. But
if I look at it, it looks to me as if Anthony Joshua and his team didn't really want the fight.
Yeah, and I think as well, to be fair to Anthony Joshua, it's probably not Anthony Joshua. I'm sure if Anthony Joshua had his way, you give the man $50 million, pounds, whatever it is, to fly over to America and fight Deontay Wilder, I'm sure he'd take it at the drop of a hat. There's probably a lot of commercial
there's a lot
considerations.
And therefore, maybe Anthony put them in a position where they had to do this to get out of it. And I know the 15 million, it's the contract signed for the next fight in April, but the problem you've got is Deontay Wilder's, is worth a bigger, in my opinion, is worth a bigger share than 15 million.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I don't think that's enough for him. Not with all the pay-per-view rights and the amount that will sell, because that's the biggest fight. That's the biggest fight out
So
there.
here you go. There's the next question that we lead on to from @thefella_boss on Twitter. If you imagine Deontay Wilder, what split expressed the percentage would Steve advise his client that he is worth, and would he accept? What is Steve's feeling on why the $50 million was declined? Is it the job of the promoter or the manager to reject or accept such an offer?
Okay, so let's look at the first point, which is the job of the manager or promoter. When you as a fighter sign a promotional agreement, if I sign a promotional agreement with a promoter, that promoter will generally have an interest in it. It will be an interest if you don't complete that promotional deal and you want to fight on somebody else's show. It has to be agreed by the promoter, and the promoter will want a fee. That's traditional in boxing. So you can't just do that deal because the promoter has to give consent. So the promoter is part of that involvement, because you can't just walk off and...
So Eddie has every right to veto Anthony Joshua turning up on a Al Heyman card in America?
Unless it went to purse bids. So if you notice, there's no Joshua fight going to purse bids, because then the promoter doesn't retain the right to interfere. The promoter loses the right to interfere if it goes to purse bids.
But Joshua Wilder would never go to purse bids, would it?
Correct. Not unless somebody become mandatory and the governing body put it to purse bids.
So you have to lose a title to be able... Oh, what a mess.
I know, yeah. So in normal circumstances, with that, and that's why it can't happen. It doesn't go to purse bids. Hence, Eddie still has a major play in that, because he promotionally has Anthony Joshua. So therefore, you can't just, because you know, why would you? If you're signing a promotional contract with Frank or Eddie, you can't just think, oh, okay, I've been offered 10 million over here, I'll take that, because you're contracted to fight for them. So Eddie will be involved.
So what percentage would you say, ish?
It's not about percentage, it's about money, isn't it? It's about how much you get. What do you value the fight at?
Yeah. Well, that's true, because no one knows... To say percentage indicates that you know what the final pot of money is, and no one knows what that is until it's all totted up at the end.
And again, I'm not knowledgeable enough or had enough experience to know what that fight generates. I believe, from my knowledge of other fights, of other top fights, and I know what other people have earned in big pay-per-view fights, I believe that fight will gross substantial amounts of money.
100 million?
Plus. Yeah. So I would say Deontay Wilder taking 15 million, he's taking the raw end of that deal. And Alfred Anthony Joshua 50 million is a good offer. Now, the argument that they keep using is, oh, Deontay Wilder he's never earned that money before. Had Conor McGregor ever earned the money that he got fighting for Floyd Mayweather? Of course he didn't. But you can't say, oh, by the way, fighting for Floyd Mayweather, and because you've only ever earned, I don't know what his purse was, 4 million before, we're going to give you 8 million, we're going to double your money, Conor. But he earned 100 million plus or whatever it was. So it's nonsense. It's about what that fight will generate. I think that fight generates record pay-per-view numbers, generates more TV revenue around the world than any other fight, a unified heavyweight title fight. Yep. I believe Deontay Wilder would be selling himself short at 15 million. That's my gut feeling. And when they're offering, they believe that Deontay Wilder was going to earn 70, 80 million in America, I was told, and Joshua would have took 50 plus an uplift. So why, so the idea of Joshua now booking 2 Wembley dates means he can't go to America now, can he?
Yep.
Because they've now committed to 2 Wembley dates, which goes part to the first plan, that why, when you've got a worldwide star like Joshua, take the risk? Why take the risk? Just keep beating the ones you can beat.
And going back to the question, example, why does Hearn even need to have a view on the 50 million? The offer was for the manager to review and advise his fighter.
Not if it's superseded by the promotional contract.
Okay, right, fair enough. Mikey at Analyse Boxing, thoughts on the quality of matchroom cards? Many argue regular Sky headliners are getting worse and undercards haven't improved since 2014, when each year Eddie promised they would, all while on top of the subscription we have to fork out any decent fight. Put a full stop in, please, Mikey, next time. I.e. White Parker.
I haven't actually analysed. I haven't sat there and analysed all the different cards going back. I generally, from my gut feeling, says the quality of the undercards have not been that bad. I think the problem that you've got with these cards, if you look at even White Parker, the only fight that's competitive apart from White Parker is Chisora Takam.
Yep.
The rest of the cards are 1 to 20, 1 to 50. So my argument would be that card is not PPV worthy in terms of the depth of the card. or at the top of the bill.
Yeah.
You could argue that. But it seems to have sold out the O2. So, but going back to the general stuff, the revenue is, I think sometimes, because you get bigger fights on pay-per-view, they then go back to the standard Sky cards, and all of a sudden they just look inferior. But I think if you probably analysed a card from, say, 2014 and analysed the cards from 2017, if we sat there and went through fight by fight, I doubt it's much different.
No, I'd agree. I don't think 2014, going back that far, was particularly golden period.
Can you remember that? I can't remember.
No. What always makes me laugh, there was a quote by Eddie a while back, going back a few years, I think it was when they renewed the Sky contract and there was going to be additional money flowing in. There would be a world title fight on every fight night on Sky, and so now you just don't get many fight nights. You get next gens, you get pay-per-views, there's very few fight nights.
But sometimes if you promise I always have this with boxers, right? If you promise a boxer this and you deliver this, they're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
Just promise them that and deliver them that.
And if you can pull off that, then
it's a bonus.
Yeah.
But when you go and talk and promise this and don't deliver that, then you always seem to be it's just the wrong way of doing it. I prefer to talk real, because I'm sure he'd love to put on a world title fight, but that's not really possible, is it?
Yeah.
And you haven't actually got the stable to do that.
No, it's very true. Right, we'll move on. Thomas Lyons, on a marketing level, which fight sells better in your opinion? Triple G Canelo rematch or Joshua Wilder? It's fair to say that egos have overrode the nature of such stellar events. So is it fair to say egos have overrode the nature of such stellar events like these?
I'm not sure it's egos. I think it's business. Business has overrode it.
I think none, I'm not a historian, but I'm sure big fights have always had problems to organise.
Sure. Look when they try to do Riddick Bowe, Lennox Lewis.
Yeah, bin the belt.
So going back in history, that's been normal. So I don't think it's egos, I think it's business. With Anthony Joshua, my view is they're saying Anthony Joshua is an absolutely monumental ticket seller, generating monumental money. Why do we want to risk the golden goose? Because if he does lose to Wilder, it won't be the same again.
Yeah.
So therefore, keep him winning, keep him generating money, and then when you put him with Wilder, he'll have earned so many more millions. Remember, it's not just him that's earning the millions. It's promoter, it's StubHub, it's whoever's selling the tickets. So there's so many people, commercial people, that are making so much money. Why risk it? That's what they're doing. Do I think it's right for boxing? No, but in the business world, that's what it is. What is the bigger fight? Wilder Joshua by miles.
Yep.
Canelo's been tainted by eating too much meat. And I think, for me personally, I've lost a lot of interest in Canelo Golovkin.
Oh, agreed.
But Wilder Joshua, to me, is the fight that would whet my appetite of any fight out there.
Although I've lost a little bit of interest in Joshua Wilder, to be honest. There's only so much.
But you've lost it because you're fed up with the BS.
I'm fed up with the interim conversations while there's no end product.
But then you're fed up. But the thing is, if you put that out and that fight went on back end of next year, and they stop talking all this rubbish, and we get on with they can fight who they like. When that fight comes around, you'll be buzzing through it.
If they announce it, how they announced,
and it's not by the way, it's not bigger than the World Cup final. The England World Cup final, which was something said this week. That's ridiculous. You're not going to get 40 million households watching.
Agree. But like Canelo Khan came out of nowhere, they just announced it one day. Like, if they just did that, then fine. I'm
totally agree. This is just all nonsense, isn't it?
Great with that. Cool. Right, let's move on to the ones about yourselves. From Thomas Lyons, how far do you see Linus Udofia fighting for British title and beyond? Has all the attributes to make it to the elite level, and with the exposure of Dave and Haymaker, how has this elevated his career since working with him and your relationship guiding him to the top?
Well, my relationship's the same. We just take every avenue possible to get him towards the top, and it's just a step. It's a step towards. I mean, when you manage a fighter, you manage them and build them in different blocks and different directions. The key with this is, whilst he's signed with David Hay, that we are still having opponent control and we're still guiding his career.
So you can still manage him as if he were fighting on your shows?
Correct. Of course, subject to David Hay and the broadcaster agreeing, but we still retain control. Whereas if you put some fighters on some promoter shows, you don't have that anymore. Some of them you only can say no or yes to. So where Linus is at the moment, we're developing towards titles. That was very, very important. But he's obviously got greater exposure now. He's got more sponsors. He's getting very good ticket numbers at the door. He's got everything there, but he's not a finished product. product. He's learning. He's getting the right fights at the right time, and we're now going for the Southern area. That's the immediate pickup that we're going for.
Taylor Jones is defending that Saturday night, isn't he?
He wins easily. But we have offered that before. I understand it could be Felix Cash could be the mandatory for Taylor Jones, which I understand.
Yeah.
So Tay will either fight Felix Cash or that fight will miss. But Linus is sitting there, and we want to go for that. Honestly, do we want to fight Felix Cash for the Southern Area title? Absolutely not, because Felix Cash is a fight that we'll do for the British title down the line. You're not going to fight for Southern Area Felix Cash. Makes no sense. By the way, it doesn't mean I don't think he beat Felix Cash, but you don't want to be doing it.
It's a bigger fight than a Southern Area title.
So we're aiming for that fight at some point this year.
I'd love to see that fight.
Taylor Jones against Linus?
No, Felix Cash against Linus.
Felix Cash against Linus, yeah.
Felix Cash is a good fight, but I'd stand by, I think Linus is
I think Linus can beat him. I think Linus can beat him. So I think all about the titles, it's all about I don't like putting timescales on, because you go for the titles when the opportunity is right and the opponent is right. If it's the wrong fight at the wrong time, you wait and bide your time. And this is what good management is. Don't just go in because, oh my God, I want a British title. Linus, in my opinion, has been managed, I would say this, but he has been managed perfectly. He has. He's been managed perfectly. He's got the right fights, the right development. We've done a brilliant job with him. And it's just the beginning.
Yeah. All right, question for Steve. This from Sam at Fight Talk. What's the current situation with Hassan Kokaldi? His return was supposed to be 9 or 10 months back.
Well, Hassan Kokaldi had, obviously we know that he was suspended after the situation with Nick Blackwell. And he was due to return, but he then had a medical issue.
Okay.
That has only just been resolved 2 months ago. So he is now in the process of getting his medicals redone. And I'll probably have a meeting with his team this month, because I've been away on holiday. So I would hope to see him back in the ring September, October.
All right, excellent. There's one that's not on it that's just occurred to me now. What's going on with Junior Sava at the moment? Is he training?
He's going to be fighting September. He'll either be boxing September the 8th, or he'll be boxing on a David Hay show if there's a David Hay show.
Okay.
So he will be out in the first part of September.
So he's getting ready.
He's going to fight September the 8th as we stand. If David Hay show is formalised around that time, then we'll move him on to that.
All right, cool. Back to these. Oscar Smith. What's the progress on the Okoli versus Camacho Commonwealth title fight for the 22nd of September? I can't see him fighting at York Hall when AJ is scheduled at Wembley for the same night, especially being managed by AJ Boxing.
That'd be a
tough shit, isn't it? If you lose the purse bid.
You lose the purse bid. So the way that doesn't happen is Eddie Hearn wins the purse bid, which is the fight's now got the purse bid. It's due at the end of this month, 31st of July. Whoever wins the purse bid will decide what happens. If a boxer, after losing a purse bid, withdraws now, they get disciplined. They get called to the board for a hearing. And
by the British board?
By the board.
Even if it's a Commonwealth
they
title?
Get called to the board, to the Southern Area Council. That happens because they don't like to see. I mean, we've had a fight fine for this, so we know. So they are called if they vacate. Now, I'm not sure whether it happens under the Commonwealth Council, but if the Commonwealth Council report that to the British Board of Control, that could happen. But all I would say with purse bids, if you're not going to go through with the fight, don't go to purse bids, because it's wrong to waste people's time.
Yeah.
Wally Camacho is not withdrawing for this fight. The fight's going to purse bids. As I've said before, that we'll be putting a purse bid in. We're confident of winning the purse bid. If Eddie Hearn puts a really big purse bid in, then he wins it. If he loses the purse bid, then he will have to either vacate or fight where he's told to fight. He doesn't get the choice if we win the bid.
So 22nd of September.
Could be the one.
That'd be amazing. Especially since he blocked me on Twitter, Lawrence Okoli. I don't know why.
He's a really nice guy, you know.
I know, I've met him. He's a really nice guy. I've never tweeted anything about him, which is unusual for me. I realised the other day I was blocked by him.
You've just become one of the most hated men in boxing, you know that. You're challenging the others. But no, Lawrence Okoli is a really nice guy.
Yeah, I've got no issue. I know his stable-mate, Umar Sadiq, very well. Umar's a lovely guy. The whole lot of them down there. Nothing but supportive of them. Until he blocked me.
Strange.
Another question from Oscar. Also, when there's such a big boxing fight on in the same city, then how much does it affect a small hall show? And has Steve ever had to cancel or reschedule a show because of conflicting dates?
Yes. I mean, I think we've done it before.
There was one not that long back, wasn't there?
Yeah, I mean, it was a clash with a pay-per-view at the O2. I can't remember which one it was. And we've got the same problem on the 22nd of September, which we're looking at other options at the moment.
Yeah.
We think it's harder for boxers to sell tickets. and I'll the general interest. So we are re-looking at. We have got a show schedule on the 22nd, which we are looking to reschedule.
Yeah.
But we're working for all the various options as we speak.
There are permutations on
because at the end of the day, you don't want to be putting a show on the same day, don't you, Joshua?
Yeah. Another question from John Bailey. Does the MTK TV contract impact on Steve's business plans, as they have promotional management arms, plus seem to be York Hall heavy recently? I think they got their first one on Friday, haven't they? But was it expected, and were you offered anything by Box Nation?
No, I was not offered anything by Box Nation, and we were never ever going to be offered anything by Box Nation.
I think there's a relationship there that probably that was always the inevitable outcome.
Of course, I mean they need somebody to fill those voids, and MTK are the people to fill that void. I don't know how the situation will work. Remember that viewing figures on Box Nation, according to some statistics, are not the greatest. So does it impact on us? Not really. Our skill is the skill that we do. If you look at Lionel Shudofa and Frank Buglioni, is the management skill. It's the moving of boxers through their different parts of their career to becoming champions. And this is what we're good at. Not, we're not there just to get two fighters 13-0, bung them on, beat each other up, and then see where that goes. We want to develop fighters to titles. There are going to be times in fighters' careers, like when we talk about Dwayne Sinclair, who's 35 years of age, Darryl Church, who's really asking for 50-50 fights, Jordan Joseph, who wants 50-50 fights, where these fighters want to go in. But other than that, we want to navigate them, like Miles Schenker into another English title shot, who got his rematch. Waddy Camacho resurrecting his career to get into Commonwealth title. These sorts of skills and movements that we do, they're unique. So I don't believe that has any impact on our skills as a management group. And we use other promotional companies. We go on the Sauerland shows. We go on David Hay shows. Yeah. So our fighters have TV exposure anyway. So it makes no difference to us as far as we're concerned.
I think the other really good example is Kay Prosper.
Yeah.
And I think where he lost to Raheem Noble for that Southern Area title, he took a bit of time out with his hand injury, and then he comes back, and actually you managed to manoeuvre him past the Southern Area level and into the eliminator with Danny Connor for the English.
Correct.
Which, from the outside looking in, you'd say, well, how have you even managed to do that? To bypass the title you lost for, to move up to the English, to get that opportunity for the eliminator there.
And that's what we do. And I think for most fighters, we spend our time doing that, and we can build a fighter's career. We believe we build a fighter's career better than anybody and resurrect them from defeat, which is very important. If somebody loses a fight, we don't just put them on the scrap heap. We find a way to bring them back.
Yeah.
And hence the Waddy Camacho, Kay Prosper scenario.
Yeah. Paul Oldtie. Steve has two boxers in front of him. Boxer 1 sells huge ticket numbers but doesn't have much potential. Boxer 2 has the skill set to get to world level but struggles on tickets. Which one would you push on your shows? It's a good question, that.
Right, from my personal angle and for what's happened to me in the past, the guy that sells tickets.
Yeah.
The reason behind that is this. I have before had fighter number 2 and done everything we can and subsidised them, only to get stabbed in the back. So when you've subsidised and put money into them, somebody else comes along, whispers in their ear, and then they go off, and you think, I've just done a load of money here. Money that I could have given to my kids, that I could have gone on holiday with, that I could have done something.
Could have put a screen up for an England match on Sunday for the World Cup final.
Yeah, which we may well be doing. So, but you know what I mean, though, Martin? Because if you were doing that for your money,
I know you personally subsidise certain fighters,
and they've all stabbed
certain fighters that have then moved elsewhere,
and they've stabbed me in the back. And it's not just gone elsewhere; they've done really nasty things.
Yeah, and
probably not benefited from in the long term, really. But so therefore, the key to that is, Paul, ideally you'd like to work with both. But I have taken if I have got a talented kid that needs financial subsidy, I'm not going to subsidise them anymore from all that way up and lose 20 grand or 15 grand getting them there, because the likelihood is they'll stab me in the back and go elsewhere and somebody will get the benefit. So that's just an experience. If you'd asked me that question 6 years ago, I'd have said I'd have gone for number 2. So my situation has changed.
I think that comes back when you're on the podcast that we do, and you described there's no formal training in boxing. And so these things that you learn by spending money is the equivalent of if you were doing another job and you got sent on a training course for 2 weeks. Yeah. It cost $5 grand to go on that training course. It's the equivalent in boxing, as you learn from the lessons.
Yeah. And only a fool. I know the people do it, but only a fool would would do that twice. I'm not saying that we never invest money in fighters at the top level, and we would, but I'm not going to take somebody's 2-0 and think, oh my God, I've got to build them 10 fights and it's going to cost me 15, 20 grand. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, but you look at the Wally Camacho scenario, and it may well be that a purse bid goes in there that does have to be funded. And
correct. So we will do it, but the thing is, Wally Camacho has been with us for 3 years and he's been part of us and built us. We built together and given him the opportunity. So that's different. We're talking about a kid that doesn't sell tickets, who's 2-0.
Yeah.
For me, somebody else, if they, everybody that I know that's funded these type of kids, every single one, right, has been financially busted. Mickey Amu, apart from the Ghanaians that he's got, the English fighters he's funded have all hit him. Yeah. Of all the ones that he's invested money in, he's lost his money.
Yeah.
Neil Marsh has lost loads of money. So a lot of them have all been out there and lost loads of money on people stabbing them. And I understand where boxers are, but they forget who invested money in them 2 years down the line when somebody's promising them, the world. So you just can't afford to do that anymore. So it's a difficult one, but unfortunately, I would like to answer number 2, but I'd be lying if I said number 2.
That's fair enough. Always get honesty. John Bailey, we'll go down the same kind of route. Promoters A and B, what is it with people these weeks? Give me these scenarios. Approach you over a fighter you manage. A states it will give you 6 fights on Freeview, backwater channels, maybe a main Freeview channel. Okay. B is a bigger promoter, offers the same deal, cannot state you will always be shown on the major channel. Which one would you choose?
Nothing to do with being shown on. To me, you're only going to be shown on the channel if you're in major fights. So in this example here, we're talking about somebody like Linus Udofia then.
Yeah.
So to me, it's about development. It's about getting them guaranteed purses. So who's going to offer us guaranteed purses? Is the contract flexible? Because 6 fights, right? If you sign up for 6 fights with some,
that's a long term, isn't it?
You could be signing a 3-year deal to get an injury, right? Because what some promoters would do is, if, for example, you have a 3-fight deal over 18 months and you're injured for 6 months, it automatically gets extended at the end.
Yeah.
So you have a scenario here where it's not just about the fights, it's about what the contract is, how flexible it is, and how short, and when it runs out and when you can renegotiate. So I would say that in that example, it depends on who the promoter is and what the actual contract says, rather than the number of fights.
All right, cool. Final question is from CM Sports Agency on Twitter. Would you look to sign boxers from the hugely successful Army setup who may want to go pro?
Yes.
You got one, didn't you?
They don't turn pro. The problem you've had is I've probably met 3 or 4 Army kids, and none of them ever turn pro.
Right.
So there always seems to be they get lured back to the Army. There's problems with, if they're in the Army, about getting permission to professionally box. Yeah. It's a bit of a logistical nightmare. So every single time we've been approached by a decent Army kid, they've never actually gone pro.
Right.
So yes, we'd be interested, but I don't want to be wasting my time meeting loads of Army kids who don't ever turn pro. We need to be sure they're going to turn pro, because it's too much aggro otherwise.
Yeah. And that's it. And I think we want to get home for France versus Belgium.
We do.
And yeah, so thank you very much for all the questions. You'll see later on this week the information about the Fight Cup, who's fighting who. I'll try and stir some stuff up on social media between them, and
I'm sure you'll do well. They haven't blocked you, have they?
No, Dwayne likes me on social media.
Oh, that's all right then.
I told him to sack off his entrance
music, yeah.
And he did. So that's my influence, is changing people's entrance music.
You going to any boxing this weekend?
No, I'm home this weekend. I will try and catch some, but
yeah,
we'll see. So thank you very much. Oh, Rocky Fielding's fighting, isn't he?
Oh, yeah.
I might watch that. Tyron Zoiga.
Yeah, it's Saturday, isn't it?
Yeah, the fake WBA belt.
Yeah, I know. Good fight. I mean, Rocky's been a good servant to boxing, hasn't he? And so he deserves his chance. I presume he's getting well paid, so
yes.
Good luck to him. Let's hope he wins it.
How mad is it when Callum Smith knocked him out in a round? If you'd have said at that moment, Rocky Fielding will fight for a version of the world title before Callum Smith would, you'd never have thought it, would you?
Just shows you how boxing is nowadays.
Yeah.
And I think and Callum Johnson taking that fight with Beterbiev.
Yeah, brilliant. Good on him.
Full credit to him. I hope he pulls it off.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying I'm his trainer's greatest fan, but for Callum Johnson, he's had a terrible time, and he done very well against Frank. So let's hope he can go. And
it might be his moment.
Let's hope it is. I hope it is.
I think everyone, because I don't really get the supporting of a fighter because he's British. I don't really get behind that, but I will support someone like Callum Johnson, who to take that opportunity and go out and do it. the odds are against him. Like, it's probably a 75-25 fight. But if he can go out there and do it, because he can whack like anything based on that Buglioni performance.
He needs to catch him. If he catches him, anything. And good luck. Let's hope he does it. And sometimes the underdogs can come and do it. But full credit to him for taking it.
Yeah, wish him all the best for that. Exactly. All the best. Excellent. So thank you very much for watching. We'll be back next week, possibly with a World Cup hangover still. But
with any luck.
Take care. Enjoy the football, and we'll catch you later.